Send your mind back to 1941. During this time, one of the smaller L&ER routes known as the Woodhead Line was considering electrification as a new form of locomotion for the varying gradients it played host to. Who better could they call to design a locomotive than Sir Nigel Gresley himself? Even though the prototype was completed in Doncaster Works under the L&ER number 6701, the electrification of the line and production of 69 similar units was delayed by World War II. It had been tested on sections of the L&ER 1500 DC lines, but the prototype worked no great distance before 1947 when it was loaned to Dutch Railways. The purpose of this loan was to assist with their post-war shortage of locomotives. In September 1945, the L&ER finally dubbed the class with the classification of EM1. In the prototype's life, it had gone through a couple different numbers. Starting at 6701, it was renumbered as 6000 and ran under that number on Dutch railways. Following the formation of British Rail, it was renumbered as number 26000. While working on Dutch railways, it gained the nickname Tommy, which is the term used for British soldiers in the Netherlands, and ran with a nameplate for the rest of its working life, showing the name and its origins. During Tommy's time in the Netherlands, he showed that the design did not ride well at high speed due to the bogie design. The buffers and couplings sat mounted on the bogies, which were then linked together by a drawbar. The drawbar was added with the intention of removing stress from the superstructure of the locomotive. Drivers also complained that the cabs were too small with poor visibility. In 1950, production of the class began to a modified design also classified as EM1. The class didn't receive its reclassification into the Class 76s until the TOPS classification scheme introduced on March 28, 1968. The locomotives were fitted with diamond-shaped pantographs which collected the electricity from the wires above the line. At specific points on the Woodhead line, the electric lines were as high as 20 feet above the tracks, usually in the vicinity of steam water columns. The normal practice on the Woodhead line was to raise both pantographs to maximize current collection under any weather condition. On the higher raised parts of the wire, the pantographs had to raise to nearly their full height to be able to collect power. Though the class was designed and built for freight consists, there were several 76s that worked passenger service in Woodhead. Of the 14 to head those passenger services, 13 of them were given classical Greek names. Unfortunately, the names were removed after the discontinuance of passenger service on the Woodhead line in January of 1970. Only one Class 76 has been saved in preservation today, number 26060, later numbered 76020, sits at the National Railway Museum in Manchester. She was picked for preservation specifically due to her stainless steel handrails, as well as having been exhibited at the Festival of Britain. She was also the engine to pull the opening day train through Woodhead Tunnel. In the museum, she sits alongside the cab of number 76039 and the door to number 76051. Comparing the game model to the real deal, we find that all the details are in place. With how many engines this has been effective on, I'm beginning to think I should stop saying it. In the cab, we find some very interesting controls. In fact, these controls are so dynamic that even Professor Mobius, the man who knows more about trains than I do and who helped me narrate Flying Scotsman in the A4s, couldn't figure out how to make this locomotive work. In fact, he even had to use the game interface in order to be able to figure out which controls did what. The horn actually sounds like a horn on the 76, more like an air horn at a soccer game, but a horn nonetheless. Finally, we hit the topic of top speed. With the lower power of the engine and the slopes of the Woodhead line, you can reach 60 miles per hour, but it is a slow crawl to that speed. All in all, this is still a pretty good electric engine and definitely one to get if you want a complete Gresley collection.